almost 8:30 Nigerian time, and this is BHF Media, and this is Time Out with the Youths, a production of BHF Media. We are looking at various issues that has to do with the youths, and also at the same time trying to take a global view of what is happening around the world, at least to have an insight of what is happening around the world and be able to give our own perspective as it relates to peace, as it relates to the women, children, youths, and also try to see how to make the world a better place. The war in Gaza, the war is still going on. The war in Lebanon is still going on. Just a few days ago, I'm sorry anyway for being off air for 3-4 days. We had some serious issues, challenges here and there. As we always know, we keep having the issue of power in Nigeria. The national grid collapsed, and so there was no power. We were trying to fix up the backup here and there, backup power here and there, and we keep having one or two challenges, and so we're not able to come to you as we have desired. So we really want to apologize for not being around for about 2-3 days now. That we're having issues with power. But again, we know that there's serious issues still going on in Lebanon. The crisis is still very on. The attack on Lebanon by Israeli is still going on. It's massive. Quite a number of people have been killed. There are a lot of tunnels that have been found around there, and we've also seen that it seems as if the Hezbollah terrorist organization, which the Iranians call Axis of Resistance, were preparing to carry another kind of October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel in the northern border. The IDF were able to show a lot of visuals of the bomb and all kinds of military gadgets and equipment that have been positioned waiting for probably the precise day of attack before the whole thing was messed up. So it's quite unfortunate. Like we've always said in this program, we are not trying to take sides with anybody. We are trying to see how we can be able to give our own perspective, and also how to see that this issue be able to de-escalate the issue. Obviously, Iran has invested so much money on the terrorist organization, Hezbollah. So much money has been invested, so much money, and you begin to wonder the money that Iranians are making from oil. They seem to be investing it on all their proxies nationwide. We have worldwide. You know, the Iranian terrorist organization seems to have moved across over 5 continents. They have strong backing and strong followers, and they have cell groups operating around the world. You know, and Hezbollah, Hamas, all these are proxies of Iran, and Iran seems to be in the center of this whole crisis that is taking place. And the Jews, we've been able to see the level of resistance, attack coming from the IDF against the terrorist organization. But unfortunately, Lebanese citizens seems to be the ones that are paying the ultimate price. As a few days ago, over 1.3 to 1.4 million Lebanese have been displaced, and thousands have been killed. Properties have been destroyed. The fear right now is that Lebanon does not turn to another Gaza. But again, who are you going to blame? Are you going to blame the Israelis? There are so much facts on the ground that there are so much visuals on the ground that shows that the Hezbollah terrorist organizations, the main agenda is to wipe out the Jews. We've been able to see the blueprint of their Hamas. We've been able to see their charter. We've been able to see their should I call it their motto now, or their vision, or their ambition, what they seems to be living for. You know, and we see that in some of the charter which was released the Hamas chapter, the only thing they need, the only thing they want, and the only way they want peace is to see that the Jews are wiped out. That's the only thing. So it's not as if it's a group that has an open mind towards having a peaceful settlement of what is going on in the Middle East. As far as the Hamas terrorists are concerned, as far as the Hezbollah terrorists are concerned, the only thing they want is that they wipe out the Jews. So you begin to wonder how you are going to, the world will stand by and watch a group like this without serious sanction on them, with so much motive. It's just like a group will just say, well, we don't want Britons anymore, so they want to wipe out the entire Britain. I don't think that's a good idea. That ideology is very wrong. It's very, very wrong. And I think the world should be able to hold Iran responsible for what is taking place right now in Lebanon. And unfortunately, the Lebanese government is a failed system. Lebanon is a failed country. So they seem not to have the capacity to be able to withstand whatever is taking place, or whatever the Hezbollah they are doing. Hezbollah seems to have taken over Lebanon, and part of the Iranian money is pumping into Lebanon in terms of equipment for crisis, for attacking the Jews and the rest. We just want to bring up to date of what is really going on now. And for the first time again, the Hezbollah drone was able to hit this target and kill about 4 Jews, with over 20-something seriously wounded. They were able to penetrate through the Israeli drone defense system. The drones, the missile defense system and the rest that which they have in Israel, the David Sling and the rest. They could not detect the drone that came from Lebanon, fired by the Hezbollah. So they were able to cause massive destruction, reasonable destruction anyway, if I should put it that way, in Israel. As a matter of fact, they struck the military base, and 4 soldiers were killed instantly. It was in the evening when they were about to take their dinner. That was when this drone hit the military base, and 22 were injured, and about 4 were dead. They just did the funeral of about 1 or 2 of them, and you see the outbursts and the cry. Now, this whole thing started in October 7, 2023. So you imagine what damages, of course. That's why before you take any action, always think of the consequences. Right there in Palestine, that's there in Gaza, close to 45,000 people have died. 45,000 Palestinians that are supposed to be alive today, they died. They were killed. They've been eliminated. They've been deleted from existence. So it's not actually, it's unreasonable. And I ask myself, every day when I look at this issue, I ask myself, what actually did Hamas think they want to gain by what they did in October 7, 2023? Because all these crises we're having right now, the destruction in Lebanon, the destruction in Iran, where Haniyeh was killed, the political chief of Hamas was killed when he went for the inauguration of the new Iranian president. He was eliminated right there in Iran. And you see the number of Hezbollah leaders that have been eliminated. Practically all the leadership of Hezbollah has been eliminated. And so you ask yourself, what is the purpose of this crisis in the first place? The crisis that Hamas started in October 7, 2023, what were they thinking they want to achieve? In that crisis, they killed about 1,200 Israelis, were eliminated in that crisis. About 250 or thereabout were taken hostage in that crisis. And at least about 117 of those hostages have been returned. And so the remaining ones that are there, nobody even knows whether they are still alive. So we are not even talking about the hostages anymore. Since the issue have escalated, and now the attack is going on in Lebanon, nobody is even talking about the hostages anymore. We still have over 110 hostages that are in Gaza currently. They've been there for over a year. Some of them have not seen the sun. They've been hidden in tunnels where Yahya Sinwar seems surrounded. They surrounded Yahya Sinwar, so making it impossible for the IDF to make any move, because any move they make towards that direction will definitely have a lot of Israeli casualties. So we should be very careful. We should have the mindset that we want to live in peace. It is far better. It's far better. I mean, it's a common saying, and it's the truth. You be careful before you start any crisis, because you know when it will start, but you don't know how it's going to end. Now, the Iranians also came into the issue by firing twice now. Around April and in October, they fired over 180,000 missile projectiles were fired into Israel. Although most of them were intercepted and were stopped, And in March or April, they fired around 110 or so, also, which was also stopped, and the casualty was not much. Because the air defense system was able to intercept most of the projectiles that were fired from Iran. So right now, the Iranians have fired about two times. 2 times they have fired into Israel, and it was the air defense system was able to intercept it with the backing of the Americans and also 1 or 2 Arab nations who were able to shoot down some of those projectiles. And now we are waiting for the retaliation from Israel. About 3 days ago, there was a massive cyber attack in Iran, a massive cyber attack right there in Iran, which shut down most of their system. And the Israelis have not claimed responsibility, but all eyes are pointing towards the Israelis, that they are responsible for what took place that very particular day. So they are still waiting, and probably in the next 1 or 2 weeks, the world might see the response of the IDF towards the missiles that were shot into Israel. Again, one of the things we're able to see again from the news is that the Americans have been able to make it very clear to the Jews that they will not want the Iranian nuclear sites to be attacked or their oil to be attacked, because it's going to affect the oil price globally. Once they are attacked, the Iranians are one of the major producers and suppliers of crude in the world. And so any disruption to that oil facility is going to cause a lot of scarcity, and it's going to affect a lot of economy in the world. And so I think the Americans were able to talk the Jews out of that attack, which we know definitely is imminent coming to come, but attacking the oil site and the nuclear site is out of it. And so, like I said, already there's a cyber attack. Nobody has claimed responsibility. But again, it's very important to know that the Israelis, the IDF, have already made up their mind. Listen to the chief of army staff who said definitely there must be a response. Be a response. Although it's quite unfortunate and quite sad. Over a year now, the crisis is on, and it doesn't seem as if it's a crisis that is going to be abated anytime soon. The Americans are doing everything possible to see how they are able to de-escalate it. But the Jews are determined to see that the Iranians, they will pay heavy price what they've done. So I think after we've been able to find a permanent solution to this, like I always say, the world body should be a little bit sincere, because there's so much insincerity in the United Nations. I've said again and again before that there's nothing united in the United Nations. There's so much injustice in the United Nations, and it's not possible to prefer peace. And unfortunately, to my own opinion, I think the present United Nations Secretary General seems not to be doing a good job at all. It seems to be biased towards the Israelis. It seems to be more anti-Semitic, and it's something that he needs to work out. Because as a Secretary General, you need to be inclusive in whatever decisions you are making. You don't need to be partisan. You don't need to be too quick to give your view when it comes to anything that has to do with the Jews. You quickly come out to give your own view, but when it has to do with the Iranians and the Hezbollah and the rest, you seem not to know what is going on. As we are talking right now, there are still attacks. People are still being killed in Jews, in the IDF. The IDF, they've lost soldiers. Like I said, a few days ago, they lost soldiers. 4 young soldiers between 19 to 23 were eliminated through the Hezbollah. I don't think the United Nations, through its spokesperson or through the Secretary General, have been able to come out to say this is wrong or right. So to me, we just need to be fair. I've always said in this program that you cannot have peace without justice. Peace and justice, they move hand in hand. You can never have justice. You can never have peace. In fact, justice comes before peace. If there's no justice, you can never have peace. There's always a tendency that people will always react. It's normal. It's normal for people to always react. And so we expect to have justice. By the time we are able to have justice, then you discover that there's going to be peace. There's going to be peace. Now, we are not trying to, in this program, to apportion blame to either the IDF or the Lebanese terrorist organization, Hezbollah, that is resident in Lebanon. But we are saying that there has been a United Nations resolution in the past that has that's placed a boundary where Hezbollah is supposed to stay. I think the Litani River. They are not supposed to go beyond there. They are not supposed to get closer to the Israeli border in the north. They are not supposed to. But for over a year now, nothing much has been done about it. And it's quite unfortunate. Nothing. The Hezbollah terrorist organization have been very close to the Israeli border. They moved past the Litani River that is supposed to be where they are supposed to stay, which is miles and miles away from the Israeli border. They were able to move towards northern Israel. And unfortunately, we even have the United Nations peacekeeping force around there. But obviously, the UN peacekeeping force were not able to control the Hezbollah. They were just there, but they couldn't enforce anything. The Hezbollah terrorist organization, which is one of the most powerful terrorist groups in the world, seems to have subdued the United Nations peacekeeping force, subdued the Lebanese army. So both the Lebanese army and the United Nations peacekeeping force, they seem to be handicapped. And for over a year, not even over a year, for almost 18 years now, that this terrorist organization violated the United Nations Charter, nothing was done about it. That's why I said we should be able to be sincere in whatever actions we are taking. They've already set up a boundary. United Nations on its own have set up a boundary where the Hezbollah people are supposed to be. They are not supposed to go beyond this level, beyond this boundary. And for close to 18 years, they violated those instructions. For close to 18 years, they were getting closer and closer to Israeli borders and even building tunnels. I saw the tunnels that were built, sophisticated tunnels with AC, with everything. They have motorbikes there, they have foodstuffs, they have drinks, they have beverages. So it's a well-constructed tunnel. And this tunnel was built by Hezbollah. And there's even allegations that the tunnels were also built by some of the resources that the Americans were sending to Lebanon. So you begin to see that, like we've always observed, the Americans seem to be caught up in this whole tragedy. Because the money they send to Lebanon, some of them are getting to the hands of the Hezbollah. They also send money to Israel to equip their army. So you begin to ask yourself, why continue to fund a terrorist organization. What precisely do you want to gain from it? Unfortunately, the Lebanese army seems to be very weak, and they could not stand to defend their country. They allow the terrorist organization to subdue their nation, subdue their country. And you begin to wonder, you have a standard Lebanese army that is so powerless and toothless, and they allow the Hezbollah, the Iranian proxies, to take over their country and subdue their country and use that place as a terrorist base. How can you use a country as a terrorist base? The IDF were able to provide footage where a lot of ammunition and missiles were stored into the house of civilians. Their garages, their garage, their parlor, their houses were used as a base by the terrorist organization to store ammunition, missiles which they shoot into Israel. Now, in this kind of situation, what do you expect the Israelis IDF to do? You have bombs, you have missiles and the rest that were stored into civilian homes. Just like what they did in Gaza, they seem to be having, they prefer to use civilians as the human shield. They use civilians as human shield to protect themselves. They put the civilians in the front and begin to fire from the back, so that immediately there's a retaliation when the civilians are killed. Then of course the world press, the mainstream media around the world will begin to cry foul. The Israelis have shot civilians, they've killed civilians. But you ask yourself, but nobody has come up now to say, Hezbollah, Hamas, why are you storing missiles in civilian homes? That means you don't have regard for your citizens. You don't value the life of your citizens. You want them to be caught up in this war that is taking place. How can you be storing missiles in civilian houses? Innocent civilians. They store ammunition in their houses. It is from their houses they begin to launch attack into Israel. And what do you expect when the retaliation comes? There's going to be retaliation, of course. And that's why you begin to see right now there seems to be an increase in the casualties of the Lebanese. Quite a number of Lebanese have been caught up in this crisis that is taking place. Beirut have been bombed. Most of the cities in Lebanon has been bombed. And it ought not to be so. The focus is supposed to be on military installations. But like I said, these guys don't have that, they're not interested in that. They're not interested in the life of their civilians. Because probably they told them that if you are caught up, it's angry and they kill you, you will go to heaven. Because I don't see any reason why a civilian will allow the Hezbollah terrorist group to store missiles in their sitting room, in their garages. It's quite unfortunate that even till now there's no serious, how do I put it now? There's no serious warning that has been given to both Hamas and Hezbollah that don't you ever use civilian houses anymore to store your ammunition, to store your missiles and your projectiles. Because the life of the innocent citizens, innocent civilians will be at stake. Now look at the number of people that have been displaced, seriously displaced, because of the crisis and the war that is going on now. And there's this likelihood that is going to increase because immediately Israel retaliates against Iran. Iran has vowed that they are going to launch another attack. And so we should be sincere. And the question people have been asking, this crisis, will it have taken place if Donald Trump is the president? I don't think so. I don't think so. Because before Donald Trump left the White House as president, almost 4 years ago, not up to 4 years, but almost 4 years ago, Iran was broke. Iran didn't have so much money. Now Iran has over 300 billion. And so they have so much money now to be able to finance what they call the axis of resistance. The axis of resistance. They didn't have much money when Donald Trump was there. This crisis taking place now will not have been there. But because there's no firm decision by the Biden administration to be able to be forthwith in taking decisive action, look at where it has landed us. And that's why people are a little bit worried that the Democrats, the Democratic Party, should be able to do something to change the tide. But again, we have until November. November is, this is October. November is next month. So what precisely can they do to be able to change the tide before the US election? What can they do to be able to give people confidence that if they are re-elected, there will be some level of peace in the Middle East? Because so far, the Biden administration have not been able to be firm in their decision. They're beginning to lose credibility. They're beginning to lose influence in the Middle East because they've not been able to be firm. They've not been able to take firm decisions as one of the major players that has military bases scattered all over the Gulf states. So America should be able to see how they can be able to take a stand, because we need peace in the Middle East. We need peace. We need peace. So much damage has been done, but they put the blame of at the doorstep of the Americans, because the Americans have not been able to exert their influence and make use of their influence. For example, one of the statements that Biden made when this whole thing started last year, when they sent their ship and their everything down there, one of the statements they made is that there shouldn't be an attack against Israel. That if you are thinking about it, don't. But the Iranians have attacked Israel twice. Not only have they attacked Israel, they've also attacked American interests in the Middle East. And with this attack against American interests in the Middle East, what did the Biden administration do? Nothing. Nothing. Americans, servicemen have been killed by terrorist projectiles that have been fired from Yemen, from Iraq. No firm decision has been taken. No firm decision. And we should be able to draw a red line, because that crisis has the capacity, to become wider and wider and wider, and engulf the entire Middle East into crisis. We should be able to stand up and say no. The casualties are much. The leadership of the Hezbollah have been almost decimated. A lot of casualties. A lot of people have been killed. The long-time leader of Hezbollah for over 32 years, Nasrallah, has been eliminated. It's number 2 eliminated. Most of the commanders of the Hezbollah have been eliminated over this whole crisis by the efforts of the IDF. Some of the things that the world could not do, the United Nations could not do, if the United Nations have stood their ground and do what they are supposed to do, this crisis will not have gotten to this level. Because they've already set up a boundary, like I said at the beginning. And why is that boundary not obeyed? That boundary is supposed to be obeyed. Supposed to be obeyed. But it was not obeyed. No firm decision was taken. And that's where we find ourselves today. And I think it's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate. We will continue to advise our own opinion, give our own advice, let me use that word, that the United Nations should be able to be taking firm decisions. Firm decisions. Because the way the United Nations is now, it seems not to have the capacity to mediate into crisis taking place in various parts of the world. Because there's a common saying that he that comes to equity must come with clean hands. And so how do you mediate into a crisis when already the body language of the UN and the rest seems to be a body language that does not favor Israel? For example, during the October 7th, 2023 attack, invasion into northern Israel, where people were killed. Some of the people that took part in it were staffs of the United Nations, UNRWA. UNRWA staff was used. In fact, we find out also that the United Nations Relief Agency and the rest, they've been able to use their facility to be able to train up some of these young Lebanese, some of these young Palestine, and made them understand that their life ambition should be to eliminate the Jews. So UNRWA school is used as a training ground to breed future terrorists. It's sad. It's unfortunate. We must make decisions and take decisions that make sense. I mean, the other day I was watching a 10-year-old boy who was, they were asking him, 10-year-old Palestine, they were asking him about peace in Israel, and how they can go about peace. And he said, no, nothing like that. That is ambition, just 10 years. The young man says his ambition is to grow up and join the resistance. And so these kids have been brainwashed, and funny enough, they were brainwashed from UNRWA school that is supposed to be run by United Nations agency, funded by taxpayers' money from Europe and America and the rest. So they fund UNRWA, and UNRWA is used by the terrorist organization, used by Palestine and the rest, used by Hamas and the rest to train young jihadists. To train young jihadists. I mean, people have made up their mind that the only thing they live for is to kill. And the most pathetic part of it is that they see it as the right thing to do. They see it as the right thing to do. So you see that we're going to have a long war. Even if they are able to find a solution to it now, I foresee in the future that there's going to be more crises. And the reason why I say there's going to be more crises is because the young ones, I'm talking about 19, 16, 17, in Palestine there, they've been brainwashed from United Nations sponsored schools, trained, and books are written, and lectures are given, trained and made to understand that it's a righteous thing to kill the Jews. They've been made to understand that it's something that Allah will approve if the Jews are killed. So the children have been brainwashed from beginning. And they see it as a good thing that you are going to have a reward. Anybody that takes part in killing the Jews will have a reward. And it's quite sad that such kind of things can be taking place under the United Nations agency. Then there's something wrong. There's something wrong. In fact, by now I'm even expecting that the UNRWA himself should be disbanded. They should be stopped, disbanded, and create something else. Because so far, this very present United Nations Relief Agency, they've not shown capacity for peace as an agency of United Nations. They have no business using their schools, funding terrorism indirectly. Because it's a United Nations agency. So you will not be far from the truth if you say the United Nations are also financing terrorism. Because that's their agency. And you can't tell me that for years this thing has been going on and nobody has been able to find out that this is what is taking place there. That you have people who are training and also lecturing the children, 10 years, 12 years, to get more and more with jihadist tendency. And it's a terrible thing to say. That's why we will not be too far from the truth. We are not overemphasizing it if we say they have failed in their responsibility. There were video clips where well-known UNRWA, United Nations Relief Agency staffs were seen taking part in the October 27th massacre of the Jews. Remember, the little children were killed, butchered, old people were killed, girls were raped, sexually abused, and some of them right now are still undergoing the same process because they are in Gaza right now, in one of the tunnels. Nobody knows the tunnels where they are now, but they are also still in captivity. And you be rest assured that those girls have been in captivity, must have been raped and molested and maltreated for over a year now. And so what step have the United Nations made to see that these people should be released? Because definitely the United Nations and the Palestine and the Hamas and Hezbollah, they seem to be very close. So one would have been thinking, one would have thought that the United Nations will use their influence and their closeness to Hamas to see how they will release the captives. But no, it's not an agenda. It's not even in the agenda for discussion. The only thing you think about now is how to provide a two-state solution. And I ask myself, who will want to have a terrorist organization as a neighbor? Do you think the Jews, the Israelis, will want to have a two-state solution where Hamas and the rest have not been how do I call it? Have not been de-radicalized? Do you think? Be sincere with yourself. With the Americans, the British, the Israelis? I mean, the Americans, the British, the Russians, the Chinese. Will they be willing to have a well-established terrorist organization as a neighbor? They will not. You know, something that you will not want. Why do you want another person to have it? We are talking about a two-state solution. Will you have a two-state solution where you have a terrorist organization as your neighbor? Will you be sleeping with your eyes closed? So until the Hamas are completely radicalized, until we have a different Hamas entirely with a different ideology, and they've been able to reprogram their brain, it will be very difficult. Very, very difficult to have a two-state solution under this kind of situation. Very difficult. It is easier said than done. Those who are approving two-state solution right now, they themselves will not want that kind of two-state solution if they are the ones involved. The Americans will not want to have a terrorist organization as their neighbor. They will not want. The Russians will not want. The Chinese will not want. Look at how peaceful Taiwan is. And yes, the Chinese are thinking of how they will annex Taiwan. They want to annex Taiwan. And yet Taiwan is very peaceful. It's not having an issue with them. But the same people who want to annex Taiwan is telling you right now that they want to have a two-state solution where Israel will become neighbor to a terrorist organization like Hamas. There's a common saying that something that you don't want yourself, don't wish it for somebody else. That's why there's this common saying that says, love your neighbor as yourself. But if your neighbor is determined to kill you, if part of the charter of your neighbor, part of why they exist, part of their calling, if they tell you that part of their existence is to see that the Jews are eliminated, and the question right now is that are you willing to have such a neighbor? The neighbor that is determined to eliminate you, the neighbor that says he doesn't want you to exist anymore. Will you be willing to have them as a neighbor? Very sincere now. Very sincere. So I know that the two-state solution will not work. There's no way any leader, there's no way the Israelis will subscribe to or permit a two-state solution with Hamas. I mean, when this crisis was taking place, you begin to see the reaction of the Palestinians, even the ordinary Palestinians. They were very happy. They didn't see anything wrong. Till tomorrow, the Palestinians saw nothing wrong with what Hamas did. So if you are talking about a two-state solution with who? With those who have vowed that you must be eliminated? There is no way it will work. So we should be very sincere. Look, the best option would have been a two-state solution. But the question is that, are you willing to have a two-state solution with a terrorist organization? A well-organized terrorist organization that can carry such level of devastation, attack against you. Will you be willing to have them as a neighbor? That's the question I want to ask each leader. Each of the leaders of the United Nations, each of the leaders of the United Nations, I want to ask them, ask them as they go back in their various countries where they are now, will they be willing to have an Hamas or a Hezbollah as a neighbor? Will they be willing to? Will Russia be willing to? Will Chinese be willing to? Will the Americans be willing to? To have this kind of formidable terrorist organization as your neighbor? Will you sleep with your eyes closed? Or they want to put the Israelis on permanent wake-up. That's why they won't sleep at all. They will permanently be watching their border. The two-state solution cannot work as long as you have a Palestine that is infested by ideology of trying to wipe out Israel. It will not work. As long as they begin to build up, spend so much money in building up tunnels and tunnels and tunnels, terrible tunnels where they have ammunition, they have beds, they have everything. Underground tunnels. That's why they call them Gaza Metro. We saw the Gaza Metro. Now we are beginning to see the one in Lebanon. It's even more sophisticated than that one of Gaza. So you see how much they've invested so far. This people that can invest such kind of amount of money to be able to strike and destroy Israel, are they the people you want Israelis to have as neighbor? The only Jewish state that's existing today, you want them to have Hamas and Hezbollah as neighbor. What you don't want, don't watch. That is precisely what the Jews are doing now, IDF. What you don't want, don't watch. They are doing everything possible to see that some of these underground tunnels are destroyed completely, at least to a large extent, so that the residents of the northern borders can come back, of the northern Israel can come back to Israel, and they will be able to sleep with their eyes closed. Because any ceasefire now, with the way the structure we have today, any ceasefire now, and these things are not clearly spelled out, it's a waste of time. The people in northern Israel cannot sleep with their eyes closed under a structure and a system like this. We are seeing what is taking place. We are seeing what is going on. And it's quite unfortunate. Very, very sad. But there must be a sincere determination. A sincere determination. A sincere determination in the part of United Nations to be able to have a permanent solution. And that permanent solution shall be in process. It's not something that will happen today or tomorrow, no. It's something that will take time, where this Islamists with jihadist tendency have to be first and foremost de-radicalized. The citizens of Palestine must be de-radicalized, and it's going to take time. So probably if they start, they have to be able to do I use the word, because they've been brainwashed. So for us to begin to reset their mindset and reset their brain, that's the word I'm looking for. To reset their mindset and reset their brain again, it's not something that will take 2 months. It's not something that will take 10 years. It's something that will take close to 15 years. Because already the generation of people that we have now, between 10 to 15, have already been brainwashed by the Hamas and the Hezbollah. Seriously brainwashed. So it's not something that you just say, let's call for ceasefire. Before the ceasefire comes into place, there must be a decision that will be taken, monitored by the United Nations, sincerely, not United Nations under this current Secretary General, because there's no doubt that it doesn't love the Jews, and it's not straightforward in its decision. And so this current Secretary General is not straightforward as far as it gets to do with the Jews, the Israelis. It's not. So whatever decision United Nations take now with this current Secretary General, it cannot be a fair decision. It will continually be a biased decision, because they have shown again and again that they are very biased. As we begin to proceed, we want to also focus a little bit on on what is taking place now in Nigeria. We've seen from media reports there seems to be some move by the northern governors, the northern senators to impeach the current Senate president, so that they can be able to see how they can install a northern there as the Senate president. Now it's going to be, it would have been a good idea, but for now, the way the country is now, my own personal opinion is that it's not going to work well. The president is a Muslim, the vice president is a Muslim, and you want to have a northern as Senate president as a Muslim. Amen. What level of reason is that? And so there's no way there's no way. We saw the SSS were around there, or what we call the DSS, were around there trying to maintain peace and maintain calm in the upper chambers because of the rumored impeachment against Senator Akpabio. Now, Senator Akpabio himself has not performed well, there's no doubt. Most of the statements that he has been making are not statements that should come out from a sitting Senate president. Especially at this time when Nigerians are suffering. I'm talking about over 190 million Nigerians are living in abject poverty. The cost of food, the cost of transportation, like I've always said, school is resuming now. Many children will not be able to go back to school because their parents cannot afford the costs. Things are extremely expensive. It's not something that anybody can manage anymore. It's something that just cannot work. Things are extremely expensive. Whatever the government is trying to do in terms of subsidy and the rest, yes, the idea is right, because definitely a lot of corruption have taken place during the time of this subsidy. That's why I'm even surprised that the managing director of NNPC is still there, because it was in his regime that you have the worst form of subsidy fraud. Subsidy scam took place when he was there. He's still there as the managing director of NNPC. And so the first thing I was expecting that the present managing director of NNPC should have been sacked, should have been probed, sacked, told to step aside, investigated, because it was terrible. A lot of money was laundered, a lot of money was stolen, a lot of money was borrowed, all for subsidy. There is nothing wrong with subsidy, but those who manage the subsidy didn't manage it well, because they had a fraudulent intention. The intention was very fraudulent. So they messed up the entire subsidy regime. And so what the president is trying to do, removing the subsidy, it's something that is necessary. But one would have thought that they would have gone about it with a human face. With a human face. Not just come in and say subsidy is gone. What have you put in place? If I were the president, definitely subsidy must go. It must go. Because the subsidy regime under the current managing director of NNPC was a big fraud under President Buhari. The biggest fraud. They stole so much and wasted so much and borrowed so much to finance subsidy. And so what President Tinubu will have done is to see that our refineries are functioning. The 3 or 4 refineries owned by NNPC are working. They should be working. If they are in good condition, working very well, producing petrol, they would have moved to the next stage. So the removal of subsidy would have been gradual, not just at once, subsidy removed. No. Subsidy remove and replace it with what? With hardship, with suffering, with hunger. Fuel is now 1,100 naira, so in some places 1,003, some places 1,004. The cost of transportation is over 1,000% increase. The cost of food over 1,000% increase. A bag of rice over 1,000 naira. School fees, people that were paying 1 million before, right now they are paying close to 2 million. The cost of feeding. If you have a child in a private university, in the university now, whether private or not, especially universities where they don't allow them to cook. If you have a child in any of those universities, you'll be paying as close to 2,000, 2,500 for meal. So if your child eats 3 times a day, that's 7,500. And that's 7,500 times 31 days or 30 days. 7,500 times 30 days. Calculate it. Which is far, far more above the subsidy. Which makes nonsense out of the subsidy. I mean, out of the minimum wage. Because the money for feeding your child in 31 days is far more than the minimum wage in Nigeria. And so if you have 2 children in university, that means what this government is saying is that people should not go to school anymore. That means the government is doing its best to see how to increase illiteracy by stopping children from going to school indirectly. Because if they are going to feed with that kind of amount of money, then there's going to be issue. So the economic team of the president, they are not working. Instead of subsidizing purchase, why don't you subsidize production? Instead of subsidizing purchases, why don't you subsidize production? Because definitely there can be some concession that is given in terms of the crude belongs to us. If the crude is in international market is so and so amount, the one they give to Dangote, which they say they will be giving in naira, should also be reduced to such a way that the government can bear some of these expenses from the top. So they can give them at a price where, when it is finally refined and sold, the Nigerians will not be buying more than 300-400 naira. So the president must understand that he has to have the backing of the people. Remember, just 8 point something million people in a country of over 200 million people. We have 100 million people in Nigeria today, close to 210 million people in Nigeria today. Out of that 210 million, only a little bit above 8 million voted for this current president. So he is a president by 8 point something million votes in a country of over 210 million people. So there's still some legitimacy problem. Because less than, I don't know, maybe less than 5% or so, 10% voted. Less than 10% voted for this current president. And the policy he's making now is so unpopular among the citizens that even the 10% that voted are even regretting that they voted. They regret that they voted. I've seen quite a number of people that say, yes, I voted for the president, but I regret. But you see, the system is such a way that the rigging is so easy and possible because it has been modernized. And so if you do an election 10 times, they will still win, because at the end of the day, you just do not understand. The more you look, the less you see. So it is not about the will of the people. No. It's about the will of INEC. It's not about the will of the people. It's just about the will of INEC. So you must begin to have policies that have human face, so that people that did not even vote for him will be able to say, yes, this man is working. The economic team must think outside the box. They should think outside the box. We should not subsidize consumption. We are subsidizing production. Because when you subsidize production, the cost will reduce and people will be able to buy. Let's not subsidize. I will say that again and again. Let's not subsidize consumption. Let's subsidize production, so that we can begin to effect changes right from production. The cost will reduce right from production. Nigerians have suffered enough. In this less than 2 years, the destruction is massive. Just only 2 years in power, and it looked like 100 years because of the massive suffering that is going on now because of the wrong economic policy by the economic team. Terrible policies by the economic team. The economic team who have not been able to think outside the box to present a reasonable idea to the president. The president has a good intention, but there are better ways to go about this good intention. There are far, far better ways. Far, far better ways. I don't claim to be a professor of economics, but I have common sense. And that common sense that I have, I know that if we finance production, if we subsidize production, then the cost of production will reduce. And when the cost of production reduces, the Nigerians will be buying fuel at a cheaper rate. Because everything is factored into cost of production. You are not going to blame Tinubu, the managing director or rather the owner of Dangote refinery. You won't blame him. He's a businessman. He invested billions of dollars so that he can be able to make profits. It's not a charity organization. So what we would have done was to have assisted him in terms of in terms of bringing down the cost of production, so the ordinary Nigerians can be able to buy the product. We are saying all this now because we want a situation where the cost of living should reduce, so that people can be able to afford to go to school. There is nothing that government in Nigeria does for Nigerians. Nothing. Nigerians don't benefit anything from their government. There's nothing that Nigerians benefit, apart from those who are in government houses here and there, and those who are in the Senate and the rest. I told you here that a senator was speaking the other day and he said they earn 29 million. One senator, not all of them. One senator earns 29 million. One senator earns 29 million naira. While the ordinary Nigerians, they earn 70,000 as minimum wage. A senator earns 29 million as his own minimum wage. That is the tragedy of leadership in Africa. The tragedy of leadership in Nigeria. Where the ordinary Nigerian earns 70,000 as minimum wage, but the senator earns almost 30 million as his own minimum wage. Check the disparity. 30 million, 29 million. 29 million. And you begin to ask yourself, what do they do there? You are paying one 29 million while you are paying the other 70,000. And that 70,000 has not even been affected in most states. It has not been affected. In most states, it has not. It has not. So please, something has to be done on time. Because Nigerians have managed and bear, believing that tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow is getting worse. Tomorrow is getting worse. They tell you that this is the necessary pain that you must undergo for a better tomorrow. And the question is, ask yourself, is how many people are bearing that pain? The senators that go with 29 million, are they bearing the pain? Or those in the presidency and those in government houses and governors and the rest that goes on with a lot of money, they don't feel it. Look at houses everywhere. The houses you see everywhere, new houses you see everywhere, that are built by politicians. All over the world, Nigerian politicians are buying houses and building houses and owning properties. And you ask yourself, is this what leadership is all about? How long will Nigerians suffer? How long will Nigerians suffer? How long will they continue to go through what they are going through now? Because they keep telling us it's necessary evil. And the question you ask yourself is, how long? We will not be able to receive calls here now. How long are we going to continue to be in this terrible situation? How long will the people continue to suffer? Until they begin to eat their children, until they begin to suffer, until they begin to eat from the dustbin. Look at the thousands of Nigerians that are on the street begging. Why those in government houses are enjoying, over-enjoying. Those in National Assembly are enjoying, taking millions and millions, brand new SUVs. Why the people are suffering? And the only thing they tell Nigerians is, this is the suffering you need to undergo, so that tomorrow can be better. When is tomorrow? When will tomorrow come? Because we've been hearing this again and again and again for years. This is not the first time we are hearing it. It's an old story, it's an old script. It's not a new script. It's a script that has been on for years. So we are talking about what is going on in Gaza. what is going on in Israel, what is going on in Ukraine. But you know that the average Ukrainian and the average Israeli are even more comfortable than Nigeria that we are not fighting war. Far, far more comfortable. Companies are shutting down because the oil regime cannot be sustained. That amount cannot be sustained. It's not possible. The companies cannot sustain it. Industries cannot sustain it. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria have said it, have said it that it's not sustainable. It can't. So even people that are fighting war, they are even more comfortable than Nigeria that is not fighting war. And so please, we want to say that the government should be able to, there's a way we are trying to provide solution. And one of the ways we can handle what is going on right now, as I said, we want to finance, we want to subsidize cost of production so that the cost of consumption will reduce. If we subsidize cost of production, the cost of consumption will definitely reduce. Until we meet again tomorrow, let's continue to pray for Gaza. I don't know what I would say. We should continue to pray for Nigeria, but in Nigeria, the more you pray, the more things are getting worse. Because what we need in Nigeria is not prayer. What we need in Nigeria is leadership with a human face. Human beings leadership that feels the pains and the suffering of the ordinary citizen. Until we meet again, we are back on air fully now. Until we meet again tomorrow, please take good care of yourself and make sure that when you are voting anywhere in the world, in Africa, please vote correctly, vote wisely, vote the right person in government. Because if you mistakenly collect money to vote the wrong person, you will suffer for the next 4 years. Thank you very much.